All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the October 16th meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission. We'll go ahead and jump right in it. At this time, we're going to start with the roll call. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes, Bob Lucy's not here. Nicola Jardin.
Here.
Von Hartung.
Here.
Oscar Delgado.
Here.
Christopher Dayer.
Here.
Bill Thomas.
Here.
Adam Spear.
Here.
And Cole Mortensen today.
All right.
I am here.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Cole. Okay, with this, we'll move into the Pledge of Allegiance. And Cole, if you'll do us the honor and lead us in the pledge.
I'd be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Back here. Okay, Madam Clerk, initial issues are special recognitions.
Yes, I just want to say that the second presentation from NDOT is being pulled. It'll be brought back next month. So the first one is for the American Planning Association 2020 DeBeer Awards. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Four.
Amber Harmon is presenting. Welcome, Amber.
Hi, thank you. So I'm all set to share my screen. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, good morning, board members. I'm Amber Harmon. I'm the Northern Nevada Chapter Secretary for APA. And for the last couple of years, I've led the efforts for the annual Chapter Awards Committee. During my time on the board, we started teaming with the Georgia APA chapter to judge the award submissions, which has eliminated the opportunities for biased judging and has been really successful over the past 3 years. This year, the chapter awards included 9 different categories, of which RTC of Washoe County was awarded 3. Oops, sorry. The Virginia Street Bus Rapid Transit Extension Project won for outstanding implementation. The criteria for this category includes recognizing an effort that demonstrates a significant achievement in the area that accomplishes positive changes as a result of planning. This project will better connect the universities to downtown, midtown, and beyond. This $87 million investment in the community will create connectivity and support economic development, enhance safety, and improve livability in the corridor. The implementation of this project was made possible by the planning efforts in 2012 through 2015 by identifying areas that needed improvement, estimating construction costs, and securing great funding. The planning process directly contributed to the implementation of this transformative project for the community. The corridor planning efforts of this project also won an APA award in 2014. The Outstanding Public Outreach Award was presented to the South Meadows Multimodal Transportation Study. The lead consultant was Headway Transportation with their subconsultant Wood Rogers. The criteria for this category includes how a region or community involves the general public in the planning activity above and beyond the minimum state or local requirements. This category emphasizes successful efforts to engage the public as well as programs to raise the overall level of understanding of planning, economic development, environmental, or integrated issues. The focus of this project was to improve the safety and efficiency of the multimodal transportation network in the South Meadows area. A plan was developed that would establish the long-term vision for the local transportation network while identifying short-term, mid-term, and long-term projects geared toward improving transportation efficiency and safety for the next 20 years. The public outreach efforts for this project resulted in over 4,000 public comments from more than 1,000 residents, the largest number of public comments and study participants for any corridor study in the Reno-Sparks area in recent memory. The extensive public comments and robust traffic operation analysis helped the project team identify approximately 248 million of recommendations which could improve safety, maintain traffic operations into the future, and enhance multimodal networks for many years to come. This is only the second year for the Outstanding Community Partner Award, which honors local businesses, community organizations, or agencies that have promoted the advancement of health, safety, and economic well-being for all residents. The award emphasizes an organization's contribution and supports toward community values. With over 20 involved agencies, the Washoe County Vision Zero Task Force has collected and analyzed pedestrian crash data for 4 focus areas in the Truckee Meadows for over a 5-year period. The data will be used to identify trends and determine what proven strategies will help save lives, prevent severe injuries, and increase physical activities while benefiting the environment and local economy and advancing equality. The Vision Zero has enhanced the public's awareness of critical pedestrian fatalities in Washoe County with the planning efforts to analyze 4 focus areas throughout the Truckee Meadows led by RTC planners. They have gained information to implement safety measures throughout the entire region. Through their community partnership with participating agencies, together they have broadened the public's knowledge how to be safe as a pedestrian and a driver. Congratulations to RTC of Washoe County for these wins that are helping to improve the quality of life in Truckee Meadows. Personally, I was very excited to see Northern Nevada take home so many awards. Thank you. Let me stop sharing. Sorry. Why am I not? Sorry.
That's okay, Amber.
Like, how do I get back to my, oh, there we go, stop sharing. Sorry, thank you.
No worries, no worries.
If you have any questions about anything, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, thank you. That's impressive to see those great list of community partners and agencies that are really doing incredible work in our community, and it's so nice to see it rewarded. And the DeBoer, am I pronouncing that right? DeBoer?
Yes, DeBoer Awards, yeah.
Award is really prestigious. So congratulations to everybody involved. That's incredible. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner?
Well done, team. To everyone, the designers and RTC and staff and everybody. Good job.
Absolutely. The Vision Zero stuff, just the agencies involved with that and their missions and their work is truly remarkable. So thank you to everybody. That's incredible. Okay, so Madam Clerk, does that cover all of the presentations, or do we have one on the I-80 corridor study?
No, the I-80 corridor is being brought back next month.
Okay, you did say that. All right, moving on to item 1, the approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, item 2, public input.
We have 4 pieces of public input. Bill Thomas will read in one, and the others will just name names and the date that they came in, and they will be included in the official record.
And those were received via email, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Thomas.
Vice Chair, if I may, just to run through those. We have received an email from Marcy Cooper-Smith, who thanked RTC, particularly Susie Trinidad and Mark Maloney, for their help in the senior community riding transportation needs. Particularly, they were excited about the news of the Flex Ride in Spanish Springs, and that is part of the record. We also received a comment from John Locke, who is submitting a letter of public input from a customer. And he had an extensive amount of comments that were shared with the board. And the third one is from Lori Rodriguez, and she had submitted a comment about the interest in having a elevated train or monorail connecting through the I-80 corridor. And that was the subject that I think NDOT was in part going to talk about, that we'll hear about in November. And then lastly, I wanted to read a letter that we received from Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue. This is from Alex Kukulis, Deputy Fire Chief, Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue. And he writes in a letter to the Nevada Department of Transportation, to Darren Tedford, on behalf of Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, I'm writing in regard to a safety concern that has been brought to our attention. Along Highway 447, Pyramid Highway, at the intersection of Calle de la Plata, there was a recently installed traffic signal. And the approach to this intersection is a flashing yellow warning light to warn drivers of the approaching signal. This yellow flashing warning light is currently programmed with a constant flash, regardless of whether the signal is red, green, or about to change. Many other warning signals in the area turn off when the light is green and then activate again when the light is about to change to red and stay illuminated until after the signal turns green. For our agency and our responding fire departments, the warning signal can help our apparatus operators anticipate the light change to red. Our apparatus weighs 50 to 70,000 pounds, and when responding to an emergency incident with lights and sirens, they may be traveling above the posted speed limit. The combination of apparatus weight and speed can make a hard, fast stop dangerous, difficult, and hard on the vehicles. The ability to be warned of a pending signal change would enhance the safety of our personnel and the public. In addition to our own agency's needs, it has been an observation that the public who drive through the corridor are also at risk of the current arrangement. As residents in the area have become accustomed to this warning light always flashing, they are no longer slowing down as they approach the intersection until the light actually changes. Many of these drivers are exceeding the posted speed limit, causing them to either brake hard or potentially run the red light. In either case, other drivers are at risk. We have seen numerous significant motor vehicle accidents through this corridor in recent months, and reprogramming that signal may be one way that can help reduce the occurrence of these incidents. Thank you for your consideration, and please let us know if we can provide any further details. So that concludes the public comment that we received, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. And I suspect maybe this will come up under commissioners' comments at the end, and we'll likely bring this back for further discussion. So I appreciate all of the public input. Moving on to item 3 at this time, consent items. Do we have any commissioners wish to pull any items for discussion? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on these items?
May I share one item with you? We did
Yes.
post and send to you some additional exhibits for the item 3.11, which were some legal descriptions and some maps. So those are part of your record and were submitted to you, and also were posted on the website. We don't feel the need to pull this item, but just wanted to make it clear for you and also the public that that additional information is in fact available and was available before the meeting.
Thank you, Director Thomas. Okay, with that in mind, commissioners, someone please give me a motion.
So moved. Hartung.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion, anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 4, Director reports. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on these items?
No, Madam Chair, we've read all the public comment that was received. We only took it until 4 o'clock yesterday.
Thank you very much. Director Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. A couple items this morning that I wanted to share with the board. First is I wanted to announce, in case you hadn't heard, which hopefully you have, that the construction of Lakeside Drive is completed as of the 14th. As part of the project, the RTC reconstructed the roadway, replaced ADA deficient sidewalk and pedestrian ramps, added bike lanes on both sides of the roadway, and made ADA improvements to the driveway with a $2.2 million investment with fuel tax. I wanted to specifically thank Warren Call from our staff, as well as Carrie Byron, who were the lead staff members on this project. And as a person who drives that daily, I can tell you, I appreciate it. It's a nice, smooth road that's well done and has bike lanes where they weren't before. So we wanted to announce that that project is completed and hopefully isn't being enjoyed by the public. I'd at this time like to announce some service anniversaries, which is always an important thing to me personally. I want to first announce that Ruby Barrientos, who's a customer service associate, has been with RTC for 15 years. And as of November 13th of this year, 2020, she will have been here 15 years. In addition, Amy Zing, an accounting specialist, has been with our agency, or will be with our agency in November for 5 years. I wanted to personally thank, on behalf of the board, thank Ruby and Amy for their service to RTC and our community. Briefly on the van pool, which is a very important part of our most recent efforts in dealing with air quality and transit, I wanted to bring the board some information about what's happened with van pool activities as we move through the pandemic. Before the pandemic hit in March, really hard in March, we had 218 vans operating. We worked closely with Enterprise, who's our partner in this, and as a result of the shutdowns, we dropped down to 211 for the months April through September. So while a drop, it wasn't a huge significant drop, but we worked closely with Enterprise and included communication and assurances that we would work together to make sure that this program didn't go backwards, which meant that we had to keep some vans available that weren't actually in use for the time that the pandemic was loosened up and people were able to get back to work. As of this month, we're at 221 vans in use. So not only did we come out of the pandemic and achieve our previous use, we actually exceeded it. And by way of reference, just so the board and the public understand, when we look at some of our sister agencies across the country, I'll just give it a couple examples to show what's been going on with van pool programs. Houston had 400 vans when they started and before the pandemic, but after the pandemic, they are sitting now at about 165 vans. So, a significant drop when you look at that agency. In addition, looking at Washington, D.C. and their van pool program, in February they had 587 and they dropped down to 479. So I think those two are a reflection of what's happened in terms of van use across the country. And I wanted to again acknowledge our partner Enterprise as well as our staff that are working on this. We're very proud of our efforts to beat the nationwide trend, and I think it's a reflection both of a very successful program that is not only one that our partner and us are successful at, but also probably more importantly, the public is demanding it. So it is a reflection of need, and it's we're glad that we're part of the solution to providing that transit opportunity to the public. We are bringing awareness, as we always do, because safety is such a big issue for us as an agency, to pedestrian safety, particularly with a focus on kids in school zones, with the hashtag Dusk to Dawn Nevada campaign, reminding everyone how to be safe and be seen in crosswalks. Through Vision Zero Truckee Meadows, this is a community-wide effort working with the Chamber, ambassadors from Downtown Reno Partnership, the school district, and others for outreach. A major focus is for our school-age kids, especially around schools and parks, and particularly as we transition to the sun dropping earlier and people out on the street as we head into darker part of the year. The campaign will be delivered mainly through social media and includes a safety video demonstrating safety tips with local area mascots, including Archie of the Reno Aces, Truckee of the Reno 1868 Football Club, Wolfie from UNR, and the Safety Crayon of Washoe County School District. Participating partners will distribute reflective wrist straps and backpacks to community members to increase safety awareness. This is a continuing effort by Vision Zero Task Force to bring awareness of pedestrian crashes and fatalities, especially, as I said earlier, for kids in school zones and around area parks. 80% of pedestrian fatalities occur during dusk and dusk hours. So it's particularly important for us to focus on that time of day in terms of the incidents and the threats to pedestrian safety. We continue developing pedestrian safety messaging, working toward our goal of 0 fatalities now and by 2030. This is a statewide initiative in Clark and Washoe counties in partnership with the RTC of Southern Nevada. Another safety event I wanted to bring to your attention, and we're going to have a brief video on, is occurred this week in the International Walk to School Day. I'd like at this point to bring RTC Senior Transit Planner Rebecca Kapler forward to present this video to the board so the board can be aware of this particular activity and its benefit to the safety of people in our community. So Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Thomas. And thank you, board, for letting me share this exciting event with you. I'm going to share my screen and pull up a video while I explain the event to you. Hopefully you can see that. I was privileged to represent RTC with International Walk to School Day and participate with Safe Routes to School in the Washoe County School District this week. And as you can see, Catherine Dunn and Sparks had a wonderful turnout of students, parents, and teachers. And I don't know how far you can see back here, but our walking school bus was roughly 4 blocks long.
We can't, I don't know about the rest of you, but is anybody else seeing some? Oh, there
No
it goes.
share,
Okay,
yep.
see it now?
There it goes.
Okay,
Now it's
I'm
showing.
gonna stop it and start it over because I want you, it's not very long, but I want you to get the gist. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, our walking school bus was 4 blocks long. We met at Van Meter Park and gave out some Clifford safety books and pencils, and we talked to the students and parents about how to be a safe pedestrian, and then we role modeled that as we walked to school. And Catherine Dunn, Veterans, Green Bray, Lincoln Park, Bow Hatch, Mamie Towers, and Mount Rose schools all participated this year in this event. It's annual, and Officer Cloud with the Washoe County School District does a great job setting everything up with that. I'll stop sharing here. I just also want to mention that I made a new friend at the event. There was a young man named Matt, and he rode his bike and didn't have a bike helmet. And luckily I had one brand new bike helmet. So I set him up, and his smile was just worth $1 million. And he was showing everyone, look, I got a brand new bike helmet. And seeing how happy that made him was really important to us. I just also want to mention that RTC and Vision Zero is working with the Safe Kids Washoe County Coalition, and we're going to be going out soon and doing some safety with students who ride the buses, because we don't do a lot of bus stop safety information. So stay tuned for that as we move forward. And I just wanted to say thank you again for letting me show you the video.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was fantastic. Thank you. And I know Commissioner Delgado was right there in the mix, as I recall.
Yeah, didn't get to make it out to Catherine Dunn, but I was over at Veterans Elementary, welcoming a lot of students and families. And so that was a great experience. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great way to start the day, right?
It was a beautiful
awesome.
day,
Beautiful
too.
weather too. Yeah.
Well, I know in the spring, Officer Cloud also likes to do Nevada Moves Day. So stay tuned for that event as well.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. And a couple more items, Madam Vice Chair, that I wanted to mention first or next. I did want to announce for the community, as well as to remind the board, that we will be providing free rides on all RTC transit services on Election Day, November 3rd, and then also on Veterans Day on Wednesday, November 11th. It is important to note that not all polling locations are served by transit, so we encourage anyone who would like to use the service that day to check the route and schedule information at rtcwashoe.com. We also remind riders to wear a face mask and covering, which are required when riding transit for the governor's directive. And it's also important to maintain social distancing and be aware of your surroundings to make sure that you're staying safe and healthy. The new Flex Ride service is scheduled to begin Saturday, October 24th in Spanish Springs and in Somerset Verdi areas. Information about Flex Ride in all areas we serve can be found at rtcwashoe.com/Flex Ride and on social media. Outreach has been ongoing since October since early October to the new Flex Ride service zones, including assisted living facilities, HOAs, and Washoe County senior citizens. And I know personally, I've heard that, I believe it's in Spanish Springs, a couple of the senior facilities have reached out to us directly, and we're giving some training to people working those facilities to help that service be connected to the people who might want to use it. Additionally, we're launching a new RTC Washoe Flex Ride app that can be downloaded for free from App and Google Play stores starting on October 20th. So looking forward to that, and we firmly believe those Flex Ride services will mirror the success we've had in other areas where we've introduced Flex Ride. Washoe County Human Services Agency, the RTC, and Target are calling on the community to support the 2020 Children in Care Stuff a Bus Drive-By donation drive. All donations received will be delivered to foster and adoptive children. The HSA is currently serving more than 700 children in care. With winter on its way, Washoe County is calling on the community to donate warm clothes on Friday, November 13th from 3 to 7 p.m. Those wishing to donate to children don't have to get out of the car, but can drive up to the RTC bus with their donations in front of Target in Sparks, located at 1550 East Lincoln Way. Brand new clothing items needed include jackets, coats, gloves, socks, blankets, sweatpants, boots, beanies, hooded sweatshirts, and gift cards. The Human Service Agency will take donations from Target to the Family Engagement Center in Sparks, which is the main site for ongoing support for families through the winter months. So with those announcements, I had one more, I'm sorry. I did want to mention that we are working closely with the health department to create or allow for inoculation pods at both Centennial Plaza and 4th Street Station. So we've been asked by the health department to provide those opportunities in the case there's a need for a mass immunization to occur in the community. So those agreements will be presented to the board when they're completed, but I wanted to advise you that that was underway and that we're doing our part as a community partner to provide for that important service should it be needed. That concludes my comments for today, Vice Chair.
All right, Director Thomas, thank you so much. I do have a couple of questions. One of it goes back to the pedestrian safety initiatives and the great work being done there. Something I've seen on the Be Safe, Be Seen flag program, which I know up here in the Northwest at Avenida Delanda, it appears that the flags are all gone. And so I don't know what role RTC or us as commissioners can do, what role we can play to help in procuring those flags. But now that school is at least part way back in session, I would like to see if we can replace those flags and help the kids there in that section. And I think there's another, I mean, it's not just Avenida Delanda. We probably need to see all the locations where that program is and see if they need flags and how we can help fill those. The other question I have is on the Flex Ride. Can you walk me through kind of what the safety protocols are with regards to mask wearing and sanitation, and how many people are allowed in the van pools? I mean, how are we doing with safety protocols with regards to the van pools? Because they're not particularly large.
I'll ask Mark Maloney if he's on to answer that specific question. Because he can be.
Yes, Mark Maloney, Director of Public Transportation.
Okay.
Vice Chair, Commissioners. The van pool program, what we did was actually worked with Enterprise to bring larger vans in for those ones who had smaller vehicles. So basically there's choices between 6-passenger up to 15-passenger vans. So when we were trying to get social distancing on the early months, we sat down with Enterprise and we worked out a plan to bring in larger vehicles. So if someone has a 6-passenger vehicle, we might have brought in a 10-passenger vehicle, likewise, and so on. So that's how we kind of added the social distancing. Obviously, the employers who they are going to has their own processes and such. So we know that their group, they were, doing their testing, doing their protocols, and it's kind of pushes it onto that side. But for what we did with Enterprise was basically gave them larger vehicles so they could spread out in distance a little safer.
So if you have a 15 passenger van, I mean, you're putting 6 to 8 people in it. Okay. And I'm kind of asking for another reason. We're trying to get the Reno Works program fired back up again. And one of the hiccups is how we're going to transport the Reno Works participants to and from the job sites. And that my question was obviously for our our van pool, but it was for another reason as well. So that's good. Okay. Just trying to, and we've not had any incidents of
No.
COVID outbreak in any of the van pools, correct?
You're right.
Okay. Okay. So the protocols, I may ping you and get some more details on that. So just
Yeah, that'd be great.
for that. And then the last thing, can someone send me the exact location for the Flex Ride kickoff in Somerset Verdi? I probably received it in some form, but I'd like to witness that if I could. Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to start with the van pools also. Mr. Thomas, I think it's remarkable. We have 221 for a population of 500,000, and yet Houston, which has, I mean, I didn't Google the population of Houston, but it's by far bigger, and yet we're about half of them. In Washington D.C., same way. Now those are truly amazing numbers, and so I want to congratulate staff for the great work. The van pool program is it's obviously successful, so that's a true win. I too wanted to mention the Flex Ride kickoff October 24th. That Bill, we need to. I know we're getting out into Spanish Springs, but we've left out one of the assisted care facilities, which is Cascade of the Sierra, out here off of Neighborhood Way and Eagle Canyon. That's a large community of seniors, and they're dependent on the transportation that's provided by the facility itself. So as soon as we can, I'd really like to see that expanded to include at least that area. But we really, there's so many other areas. My house, much of the deeper portion of Wingfield, and I live in unincorporated area of Spanish Springs, out into the Hawko subdivisions, the Ryder subdivisions, and that. We really do need to expand that Flex Ride out here. I know we're in kind of a testing phase, but the sooner the better. Then, commissioners, what I would like to do is I would like to propose to staff an idea that I have. We all have needs. Madam Vice Chair, you mentioned the need for flags and some other safety improvements. I'd like Mr. Thomas for the staff of the 3 municipalities. So as an example, from Washoe County, it would be Mr. Solero, Mr. Smith. From the city of Sparks, it would be perhaps Mr. Martini and Mr. Erickson, or maybe Mr. Rundle, whomever they decide. From the city of Reno, it would be Mr. Flansburgh and Mr. Stockman, perhaps, to all get together and come up with a plan about creating a program for safety improvements, something like the Complete Streets program. We have need for speed bumps, we have need for stop signs, we have need for all of these things in neighborhoods that RTC, these people are all paying gas tax. I know it goes for regional roads. They've all paid into the RIF program. But there are needs in these neighborhoods. In these neighborhoods, there's some places, we talked about pedestrian safety. There's some places that are just not safe any longer. People are speeding through neighborhoods, and I know it's the people who live in the neighborhoods. In my own neighborhood, I mean, I've watched it. It's people taking their kids to school, speed down Sky Ranch. But we but we really have an obligation, I think, to try to fill this need. And I don't know what kind of a budget we could set forth, Mr. Thomas, and that's why I'm asking for an agenda item to come back so we can potentially assign a group from each one of the municipalities that would get together and look at how this would look regionally, how the, how we would go about applying so that we, obviously tests are going to have to be run. You're going to have to run a study on traffic numbers and et cetera. But I think that there's just need in every neighborhood. I'll bet you each one of you can call out a neighborhood where you need speed bumps, or you need a stop sign, or you need some type of a speed control device, and maybe it's not a true speed control device, but maybe it's the solar powered signs. I really think that there's an opportunity here. So, Mr. Maloney, you just sent me a note. Cascade of the Sierra is a point of interest. Okay, I'm sorry. It is served by the Flex Ride?
That is correct. We have as a point of interest, and we have a meeting set up with their director in, I think, a week and a half, and we're working with them as part of the overall program to reach out to all these centers.
Okay, you did listen.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't mean that in a bad way. I'm saying thank you. It's just so needed. Thank you so much. I mean, that's a large facility, and they're building more. There's a continuum of care group of houses that are going in over there, which we're going to see more and more and more of, commissioners. We're going to see more need for that age level. So back to the safety improvement program. I'd like for it to come back at some point, and we'll just have that conversation about what the program could look like, the amount of funding that we think might be able to go into that program, and the length of time. Maybe it's on a 1-year sort of rolling basis. We look at it for a year and see if it worked, and see if we're making some substantive changes. And if not, we can either morph it or get rid of it. But I can tell you, out here in Spanish Springs, we've got some real need for some improvements to make the streets safer.
Thank you very much,
And
Commissioner.
then I got more when NDOT comes along about the need. But let me just say this: Mr. Thomas and I we did a tour of Spanish Springs. Mr. Thomas, some of the need. Let's absolutely add places like Eagle Canyon. We need to add that into the RTP. There's spots. We'll talk about this when NDOT comes up. We'll talk about adding places along the highway, along Pyramid Highway, that there's desperate safety improvements that are needed into the RTP, and hopefully we can get some of this stuff done. It's a dangerous corridor, but I'll come back on that, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Dare.
Thank you. I just real quick want to say I'm very excited about the Flex Ride coming through, and I know that we'll continue to shape it as we go. And I think it's something that's, I know it just came out probably about, a little while, about a year ago, that we started really pushing on this, and we're really excited about it. So I just want to thank you. And I knew you would listen. I know Vaughn questioned that, but I knew for a fact that you guys were listening. I just want to point that out too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dare. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments before we move on?
Well, Madam
Yes, Commissioner Hartung.
In my defense, it wasn't getting it into Spanish Springs, it's getting it all the way out. I know it was an initial kickoff, but Mr. Dare, if you would have seen the map initially, it did not include the deeper areas in Spanish Springs. And by the way, one of the things that it did not include was, we were serving lunches over at the Lazy 5 Regional Park to seniors. And we had about 50 seniors that we were serving lunches to approximately. It ran from 25 to 50. And there was no transit for them. So I'm excited that we are listening to that. There's just a real need, again, for that age group. Not trying to pick on you, Christopher, but
Oh no, I'm good.
Welcome in.
I think I said exactly what I wanted. You're awesome.
Thank you. And I too, RTC continues to kind of lead on the innovative approaches to transit. And I appreciate your efforts in that regard. I know certainly my constituents in Ward 5, I speak largely for those that are seniors or have mobility concerns in the areas of Verdi and Del Webb and some of the areas that aren't currently served. It's significant. And I have heard from a number of them how thankful and appreciative they are. They all have a little bit of, how does this work exactly? What do I do? You mean it'll pick me up at my door, sort of thing. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but for this to be out in that area, they're very appreciative. So thank you to everybody for trying something new that serves our constituents. So thank you very much for that. Okay, Director Thomas, did we have anything else under your report?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, I have one additional brief report on the upcoming legislative session. This normally is somewhat collapsed in the federal, but in this case, I wanted to draw it out because it is unique that we do this every 2 years in terms of the engagement with the legislature. So we provided in your packet a report that was essentially just a update and an indication of how we're going to proceed. So I wanted to make the board aware that we are working closely with Mike Hillerby, who's our lobbyist at the state legislature, to develop our program this year and fine tune it from what we've done in the past to be ready for the session. In short, I would say that there's nothing we've come across that is specific legislative changes that we would suggest to you at this time, but there are some things going on that we need to be aware of and that we will be keeping you apprised of. And we will at the right time be making sure we present to you the legislation and giving you the opportunity to take a position where we feel it's warranted for the board to take an action to take a position on particular legislation. The ones that I wanted to bring to your attention are actually are just an update. We're not asking you today to take any position on it, but coming out of SCR3, the Legislative Study Committee, there was or is a proposed bill to amend the Constitution to allow for fuel tax, gasoline fuel tax, to be used for transit and other transportation operational issues, which is different from its current limitation as far as being only basically for roadways. So that's one that we're going to be studying and looking at as it gets presented and brought out, and certainly that'll be one we're going to come back to you and ask for your position and involvement in how you want us to respond to it. In addition, the governor and his energy office are being very assertive in terms of climate change and actions related to the vehicle fleet, which will of course influence the fuel tax revenue too. So we're working closely with them. We have meetings set up in the near future. We also will be having contacts with our legislative delegation so we can assure them of our knowledge base in terms of the issues of the environment, transportation in general, and helping with air quality. So we will have those meetings. Out of those meetings, we will certainly be sharing with the board what we learned. The main purpose will be to make contact early on before things get hot and heavy at the legislature, so we can't get the attention of our elected officials from Northern Nevada. So with that, I don't know, Mike, if you wanted to add anything, but we will be coming back to the board. I think in December, we tentatively scheduled to come back and talk in a little more detail.
Thanks, Bill. Mike Hillerby. I would just add, it's a wonderful opportunity, and we appreciate the years we've been able to represent RTC. We're very fortunate that, as you board members know, you have a staff that is professional and thoughtful, and because of both that and the model of cooperative governance that the board, all of you and your predecessors have evidenced over the years, RTC is very well respected at the legislature viewed as a real resource and of quality information, and that's important. So we look forward to representing you again this coming session. As Bill mentioned, the focus is a little bit different than it has been. It'll be fuel taxes, but very much with an overlay of greenhouse gas reduction, how transportation and transit impact the environment. The first round of the greenhouse gas reduction inventory that came out of last session, and really the work's been going on for years, focused on utilities. And while that wasn't necessarily easy work, it was relatively focused. The next big source of greenhouse gas is, of course, in the transportation area. That's going to be more difficult, and that's why you're seeing those changes. Obviously, any use of the fuel tax dollars is a top priority for RTC, so we'll be watching the details of the proposed constitutional amendment and the language to determine that, as will lots of others. You will be hearing from other constituents, contracting community, the union and labor community that's very interested in obviously prevailing wage work and the traditional uses of the highway funds. So we'll watch that carefully and report back to you. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Hillaby, thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here. I'm looking forward to our next session and you're helping us through that process. Any commissioners have any questions or comments at this time? Okay, I'm seeing none. Madam Clerk, I believe you said we didn't have any public comment on any of the director reports items, correct?
Correct.
Okay, then we're going to move on to, I believe, Director Thomas, are we at the federal report?
Yes, ma'am, we are. So just one thing I wanted to bring to the board's attention in terms of federal action. There was an approval both by the House and the Senate, as well as the President signing a bill that extended the FAST Act for one more year. And that is basically the criteria under which transportation funding is provided and kind of the rules of the road in terms of transportation funding. So that's been extended for a year. From the funding standpoint, it's my understanding, talking to our representatives and our lobbyists, that the actual funding part has been extended until December 11th. So in other words, the programmatic part was approved for a year, but the funding part is set just for December 11th, 2020. So we're still a little bit of uncertainty in terms of the funding side, but certainly from the process, the way we operate, we know for the next year how things are going to work. We will continue to monitor activities, but that's probably the most important thing I want to share with you. And of course, as we always do, there's a more detailed report that's included in your packet.
All right, Director Thomas, thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments on the federal report? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to item 4.3, NDOT report.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, I'm Cole Mortensen, Deputy Director for the Nevada Department of Transportation, and I will share my screen here for our presentation. If I can.
There seems to be a little bit of a delay, so.
I'm having just a little bit of technical situation here. Okay, let's try this again.
There we go.
Okay, is that the correct presentation format?
Yes.
All right. Well, as always, I'd like to start with safety, our top priority across the department. You can see that fatalities are up 6% across the state from the same time last year. In Washoe County, overall, the fatalities are up 9% from the same time last year. More troubling data shows that motorcyclist fatalities are up over 12% in the county, and occupant fatalities are up 33%. We are pleased to see, however, that pedestrian fatalities have dropped 9%, and the number of bicycle fatalities went from 1 to 0 between 2019 and 2020. But as always, these aren't just figures on a slide or a spreadsheet. These numbers represent people with family and lives and illustrate the potential impacts of our driving decisions. Last week, a crash claimed the life of a motorcyclist near South Virginia Street and Moana Lane in Reno. A 2017 Hyundai and a motorcycle collided the evening of October 8th. and the 32-year-old motorcycle rider sadly passed away on the ambulance ride to the hospital. Impairment was not believed to be a factor in this crash, and the driver of the Hyundai stayed on the scene and cooperated with police. This is one of a tragic rash of motorcycle deaths that we have experienced in the Truckee Meadows Valley recently. It only takes a moment to change a family forever. Please be alert and be careful while on the road. On Friday, we opened up the new, yes.
Cole, before you move on, and I apologize for interrupting, but I don't know if we wanted to wait till the end and then come back to it, but since your video is playing, I figured maybe I'd ask. Obviously, with the motorcycle crashes, there definitely has been a rash of those. Is there any attributable, indicator? Is it driver, vehicle driver, motorcycle driver? Is it a time of day?
I would have to look into that. One of the disturbing things that we've seen now, I haven't seen the motorcyclist data, but one of the disturbing trends that we've seen with the impacts of COVID is that the driver behavior has tended to want to drive faster on our facilities because there are fewer cars, it's wide open, it feels better, it feels safer to go at a higher rate of speed, which of course is one of the challenges that we actually face statewide. Drivers, and you guys see it with your complete streets, if you can narrow the facility, you can cause a little bit of anxiety with the driver, and they have a tendency to want to slow down to anticipate any activities that they might not, or that they want to react to. So I would have to get back to you on whether or not there's a systemic safety problem that's causing the increased motorcycle crashes that we've seen.
Okay, I apologize for interrupting. Thank you. I would like that information. It's disturbing for sure and tragic. Thank you.
Agreed. Okay, so on Friday we opened up the new Dandini PARR Boulevard Bridge over US 395 in the North Valleys. Through mid-November, pedestrian traffic will not be allowed over the bridge, and intermittent lane shifts and freeway ramp closures will take place as crews complete finishing the construction, such as landscaping and aesthetics. The previous 48-year-old PARR Dandini Boulevard Bridge over US 395 was removed in June. Since that time, crews have constructed a new modern bridge. The new bridge is longer and wider at 56 wide compared to the previous 50-foot wide bridge. The new bridge meets more robust current seismic design standards compared to the old structure, and the new bridge features sidewalks on both sides where the previous bridge did not have pedestrian facilities. The new wider bridge is the critical first step in NDOT's future phased widening of US 395 in the North Valleys, and beginning in 2023, NDOT plans to widen southbound US 395 to 3 lanes between McCarran Boulevard and Golden Valley Road, and both directions of freeway will also be revamped and additional designated merge lanes constructed between each ramp. So roadway shoulder closures are in place through the end of next week on US 395 in the North Valleys as NDOT crews install flashing wind warning signs for enhanced driver safety. The shoulder will be closed on weekdays through October 23rd on small sections of both directions of 395 between Lemon Drive and Village Parkway as warning flashes are installed. In May, NDOT installed underground conduit wiring and signage for the project, and over the coming weeks, the 6 wind warning signs, 3 in each direction, will be unveiled between Golden Valley and Bordertown. Lights on the signs will flash when wind gusts reach 45 miles per hour or greater to alert drivers in high-profile vehicles that travel through is not advised, and to caution drivers of all vehicles to reduce speeds. Additionally, 4 signs that will advise drivers to be aware of deer crossings in the area will also be installed as part of that project. So an update on the Spaghetti Bowl Express. New traffic shifts and lane closures were put in place last week on the northbound Interstate 580 as construction progresses on our Spaghetti Bowl Express project. Since August, northbound I-580 has been reduced between Mill Street and the Spaghetti Bowl, with middle lanes closed for construction and traffic using lanes to both sides. Now that crews have reconstructed the middle lanes, traffic has been directed to right-hand lanes as the existing work zone is shifted so the crews can reconstruct additional lanes. You probably noticed some additional overnight lane closures this week and last week as we moved the work zone. Crews are removing cracking interstate concrete, which is more than 40 years old, and replacing it with approximately 20 inches of new roadway base and concrete. Roughly 4,000 cubic yards of new concrete will be placed on the lanes. Drivers will also see intermittent overnight closures of the westbound I-80 to southbound I-580 Spaghetti Bowl ramp, as well as southbound I-580 to Mill Street as crews continue their work over the next few weeks. And as you know, this is the first component of our Spaghetti Bowl renovations, known as the Spaghetti Bowl Express. Over the next 2 years, the eastbound I-80 and southbound I-80 Spaghetti Bowl ramp will be widened to 2 lanes, and eastbound I-80 lanes between Wells Avenue and the Spaghetti Bowl striped. On southbound I-580, auxiliary merge lanes and improved ramps will also be added to the Spaghetti Bowl between the Spaghetti Bowl and Plum Lane, along with sound walls and aesthetic walls. I want to thank Commissioner Hartung again for the discussion of advanced signal warning systems as at last month's board meeting, and provide an update on how those changes will be unveiled in the Truckee Meadows. These advanced signal warning systems stationed in advanced traffic signals take the various forms that you see here on the slide. They're aimed at advising motorists of conditions at the stoplight ahead. As you know, we completed our updated advanced signal warning systems guidelines last year in compliance with the national engineering guidelines and in conjunction with our local government partners who maintain and operate the systems, including the city of Sparks. The current advanced flashers were based on drivers traveling at a speed of 45 miles per hour or greater, and as a treatment at the advanced signal, and as a treatment at the first signal approaching an urban area. Through the years, the standard driver traveling at speed and the rural nature of some of the roadways have changed. That's why this winter we'll be updating the operation of some of these advanced signal warning systems to align with the specific geometry and engineering needs of each specific intersection. Some of the advanced signals throughout the state will change from flashing at the onset of an upcoming yellow signal to a static sign or a continuously flashing signal. Timing of the flashing signals may also be modified to enhance safety. Some advanced signals may be removed due to the updated guidance, and the goal of this is a unified statewide approach that promotes uniformity and consistency in the treatment of the advanced signal warning system specific to each intersection's individual needs. This will enhance the safety of the traveling public and promote better driving behavior. Similar modifications in other states have shown a reduction in crashes, including severe crashes and crashes from drivers running red lights. So what does that mean for the Reno-Sparks area? NDOT is preparing to advertise and select a contractor to update the advanced signals in Washoe County this fall and winter. Field work is expected to begin in the second half of November 2020 and be completed by 2022. And I wanted to introduce you the changes that will be made to the Pyramid Highway and the Mount Rose advanced signals. We have recently launched a public outreach campaign to keep community members updated on the upcoming changes. And all of these that we discussed are listed on nvsafesignals.com. So the affected corridors, Pyramid Highway at Calle de la Plata, the southbound will keep the passive sign and the northbound will remove the passive sign. At Eagle Canyon and La Posada, we'll remove the active signs both northbound and southbound. At Lazy 5 Park, we'll remove the active signs both northbound and southbound, as same as Sparks Boulevard, Golden View Drive, and Los Altos Parkway. At Disc Drive, we'll be removing the southbound active sign. And moving on to the Mount Rose corridor, we'll be removing the south active sign on US 395A at the Mount Rose Highway, and on I-80 at Veterans Parkway and Gregg Street, we'll remove the northbound active sign. We will be keeping the active system, but retiming the active warning system at northbound Pyramid Way and Disc Drive, and at southbound Queenway and Far Lane, and then on the Mount Rose corridor, we'll keep the active sign eastbound at Thomas Creek and at West Wedge Parkway. There is one signal that will be converting from an active system to a passive system on the Mount Rose Highway, and that's at northbound on the 395A.
Cool. I have a question.
Yes.
I'm newer to this conversation, so forgive me. I just want to make sure I understand it right. You just went through and pretty much removed most of all our flashing on Pyramid. Is that accurate?
From the active signals will be removed. As I'm reading this, I may have to follow up with you as to whether or not there will still be advanced warning signs, but the active system will be removed.
Okay. I question that, but obviously somebody's smarter than me on this conversation, but I know we say as a state that somehow that helps people, but I I think the accidents out here are scary because of the speeds they have. So I'm trying to understand. And again, maybe we need to have a meeting. I think you guys have all talked about this and I've not, but this is our Sparks residence and this is something I probably want to talk about.
I think that that's something that we could probably arrange in the future here as we move forward with these
Yeah, please,
improvements.
like I said, I'm newer to the conversation. The accidents we have out here are usually deadly on Pyramid. We know that. And so for us to do things that take away safety make me question that.
There's a significant amount that goes into it, and a lot of it really is driver behavior, as both Commissioner Hartung and you've kind of pointed out. As you guys have probably observed, when vehicles are traveling at higher rates of speed, if the active system starts blinking yellow, the driver has to make a decision as to whether they're going to slow down or speed up. And in the case of the speed up, that's the behavior that we don't want to have. So in those cases, we may rely on a passive system that's blinking constantly so that the driver isn't trying to anticipate whether or not they need to accelerate to make it through a signal or not. So there's a lot of driver behavior that goes into this decisions in deciding when and where and how these signals are treated. So what we are working on is making sure that we have a consistent approach throughout the state, which should help with that driver expectancy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're that every signal is getting treated the same way.
If I can be blunt, is this a cost thing as well? Are we trying to save money, or what? Is this just
absolutely not? This is just based on current safety standards and the studies that we've performed.
Okay, I definitely would like more conversation. I won't spend more time on the board, but obviously someone proved this already. But I'm again just stepping in, so I need more information. And as of now, I don't know. I question it, but obviously someone has a degree on this and I don't. So I'd love to talk.
Yep. Okay, so following up on some of the board's questions and requests from the last month, we had another request based from Commissioner Hartung at the Hall Road at Shawnee-Va. And in speaking with our design staff, as you know, Pyramid Highway is still just a 2-lane facility at this point. It doesn't actually increase to 4 lanes until it gets to about Egyptian. And so when the teams designed the last project here, the distance between the acceleration lane of Shawnee-Va and the right turn pocket for Calle de la Plata was so close that they chose to just connect the two. So it actually acts as an auxiliary lane. The issue with pushing the lane through Calle de la Plata is it effectively collects the right turn movements from the 2 intersections and forces them to merge in 1 location rather than 2. What's interesting about this is that there are actually as many right-hand turn movements from eastbound Calle de la Plata as there are vehicles going through the intersection on a daily basis. So if that gives you an understanding of how many vehicles are actually trying to merge from Calle de la Plata, that's why it's important for us to try to keep that merging movements separate. A recent study has shown that the speeds throughout the area are high, and as you guys have observed, and it's causing some concern. We're working with the RTC to look at ways of reducing the speeds of the traffic through that area. Again, we find it statewide where if we have a wide open corridor where drivers feel more comfortable traveling at higher rates of speed, they do that regardless of what the speed limit is. So if we can come up with ways, and part of my staff had suggested alternatives like installing even a worm median island out there to provide just a little bit more activity that might encourage drivers to drive a little bit slower through that area. So we're looking into that. The ultimate configuration through this area will include 2 lanes in each direction as part of the US 395 Pyramid Connector and the widening of Pyramid Way. NDOT and the Washoe RTC are working together to ensure the phasing concept that will be adopted within the 2020 RTP accurately addresses the future needs of that corridor. Also, at the intersection at Egyptian, had a intersection control evaluation, which we refer to as ICE, recently completed and is going to be presented at the Project Development Committee at NDOT next week on October 22nd for action. Moving on, in response to Commissioner Lucy's question, we will continue to closely evaluate and enhance traffic safety and operations on the Mountain Rose Highway. With approximately 80% of the vehicles traveling more than 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, we will, over the coming weeks, install 5 additional speed limit signs to remind motorists to drive safely, including near Callahan Road. Following a recent road safety assessment, NDOT in 2021 will add median concrete islands and lengthen turn pockets on the Mount Rose Highway at Callahan Road, as well as reconfigure median islands and turn lanes to channelize and enhance left and right hand turns between the highway and Edmonton Drive. With an average daily traffic on the valley section of the highway growing from 15,000 vehicles per day in 2014 to nearly 23,000 vehicles per day in 2019, NDOT will also launch a long-term corridor study to prioritize potential future traffic needs and improvements to address future development and Mount Rose Highway traffic accessibility and safety between the old alternate 395 junction and Joy Lake Road, potentially including a segment of Geiger Grade. Current and future roadway use and features will be evaluated, including projecting traffic volumes through the year 2040 and certain intersections on the corridor. The resulting corridor plan will provide a blueprint for potential interim, midterm, and long-term improvements to improve traffic safety and mobility for all the modes of highway transportation. The improvements would be coordinated between Washoe County, the City of Reno, and the RTC. Finally, to follow up on the Governor's Bowl, we're working with the City of Reno to have the necessary appraisal and review done, and are planning on having the surplus request to our board by the end of the year, and continue working with the FHWA to expedite the surplus. As far as the DMV building on Galletti Way, we have staff currently working on installing the necessary broadband and communications to the facility, and plan to begin the tenant improvements as soon as construction crews, or for the construction crews, as soon as the DMV is moved out. So we anticipate that starting here in November. So that concludes my NDOT report for today.
Thank you very much. We'll wait till everybody gets back up on the screen here.
And
There we go. All right, I'll turn it over to commissioners for questions and comments. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Cole, this is not picking on you or your staff in any way. I agree with Christopher on some of the changes on Pyramid. The letter that was written in, by the way, was not prompted by me. I actually got a call from the captain at Station 46, and they apparently blew through that red light in an engine. So I mean, and they've done it on a number of occasions, so it's really bothersome for them. It's the speeds going through these intersections, Cole, as you know. I mean, people are coming from 65 miles an hour out in the north on Pyramid, and the Hall Road, that acceleration lane, that has helped tremendously. But the problem is they still need to merge. There's not as much movement wanting to turn, to my knowledge, west on Calle de la Plata that comes from the north. So, I mean, it is good to have that turn queue for southbound. That's what I mean. So we're heading southbound on Pyramid, and it's the traffic is coming from the north. It would be, Director Thomas and I talked about this. It would be amazing if we could continue that second lane from Calle de la Plata to essentially Egyptian, because you've got fully laden trucks that are coming out of the Hall, that pit, and hauling south on Pyramid Highway. That's the Martin Marietta pit. And when they stop at that light at Calle de la Plata and Pyramid heading southbound, for them to get up to speed is just, it's a problem. So if they were able to stay in that right lane all the way, and that right lane would take them all the way through Pyramid and McCarran, that number 2 lane. So it's about 4,200 feet, Cole. If we were to, and there's an acceleration lane coming off of West Calle de la Plata heading south on Pyramid now. So it wouldn't even be that. It's probably more like 3,500 feet, maybe 3,800 feet to get it to where the road forks again and widens to 2 lanes. I know it's not on our radar, but that's a really dangerous area out there, because as you pointed out, to your point, it's the speeds. It's the, people are traveling at very high speeds now, and we're seeing it on all side streets. It's amazing how, I'm getting more calls now than I have ever on side streets where people are speeding. And not that they weren't coming in before, but the number has absolutely increased. It would be wonderful if we could do, and I asked Director Swallow for this, because I think they're very effective. You guys came up with some good innovative ideas and concepts on the Mount Rose Highway and some of the needs out there by doing an RSA, a road safety audit. I don't know whether they're called an RSA anymore, but if we could do a road safety audit out on the Pyramid Highway, I think it might be a very telling report. I'm glad you guys are looking at Egyptian and Sunset Springs. There's a real need there. The fire service has asked me, residents have asked me. My fear is that buses trying to get across from Sunset Springs to Egyptian or Egyptian to Sunset Springs, because there's Alice Taylor Elementary School on Egyptian, they've got to cross 5 lanes of traffic. And that's a very, very dangerous intersection. So I'm thankful that you guys are looking at that, and we're trying to figure that out. The advanced warning down south, heading south at Disc Drive, because truckers, really, it helps them time the signals. I've actually talked to them about that, because there's a grade there. That one, I might ask you guys to just at least reevaluate that. That really helps them to understand when that signal is going to change and what gear they should be in, and whether they should be accelerating or decelerating. It's just my conversations. And then before I turn the floor over to my colleague from Sparks, you mentioned the 395 widening is not going to happen until 2023. Why until 2023, Cole? Why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we starting in 21 next year? That's North Valley's 395.
As you guys know, and as we presented before, as part of our One Nevada plan, we actually have to evaluate these projects on a statewide basis and actually take more of a data-driven approach to how we fund projects and when we fund projects. And where I'm going with this is that right now we've funded an enormous project right in the heart of downtown, which is actually going to help the North Valleys as well. So in doing so, and part of our concern with it is that that project will continue to be ongoing. So if we tried to push up the 395 widening, what we would essentially be doing is crippling the entire valley with about 13 miles of road cones for a year or two. So we'd like to finish up the Spaghetti Pole Express project before we go ahead and start the 395 widening, because in the past we've found that having that much of a corridor under construction at one time really is problematic for the economy and for the traveling public. So,
okay, no. That's great. Thank you for that clarification, because I know people who will watch this later, they'll be like, what's the delay? That's all.
One of the things that we are doing, and I probably should have mentioned it and been a little more clear on it, was that the PARR Boulevard Bridge was actually one item that we chose to accelerate to try to facilitate that widening in the future. So the old bridge was so narrow that it really would have caused a maintenance traffic nightmare and a snarl there if we were trying to replace the bridge while we were trying to widen the facility. So at this point in time, what we'll be able to do is rely on that intersection to be open and operational for the most part while we widen 395 more.
Yeah, and Cole, you and I have had numerous conversations. This is not intended to be adversarial in any way, shape, or form. This is just really trying to understand the concept, and so that we can relay that to our constituents, because we get questions on this kind of stuff all the time.
Oh, absolutely. And we completely understand the safety concerns. And, when you guys bring those safety concerns to our attention, we're always more than willing to look those up and to address those. But, at the end of the day, the difficulty for us is, we love to address safety issues statewide right now. Absolutely. but we just don't have the funding to take a widespread approach like that. So unfortunately, we have to use our data. We have to use, priority statewide to actually determine where that funding goes. Some of the things that we have tried to do in the past to try to identify, low-hanging fruit, easy things that we can do. We've done things like the Northern Nevada traffic study and the Southern Nevada traffic study to try to look at those areas where we can improve, with smaller projects. The difficulty we run into is we've seen such an enormous growth in the region, which, hey, is great. But what that ends up doing is that starts making the solution to our problems a lot bigger and a lot more costly. So, we're constantly juggling those priorities.
No, and I appreciate that, and I'll finish up with this. But one of the mistakes that we all seem to make, and this is not pointed at NDOT. I see this at RTC, and I've expressed my frustration publicly. Is we never seem to go just a little bit further when we do these projects, so that we can kind of stay ahead of these issues. And I'll point out Pyramid and McCarran. That third lane should have gone all the way to Disc Drive. I get caught in it frequently, and if that third lane, that second lane, no, it is the third lane rather. I'm sorry. If it would have gone all the way to Disc, it would have funneled a lot of that traffic, which would have gone eastbound on Disc, and you wouldn't see the kind of backups that you see. I believe it would have just really helped that the flow of that intersection. But look, I get the funding, man. I was accused several years ago of not having enough vision. And I said, I've got plenty of vision. I just don't have the funding to back it up. I would love to see light rail going out to the East Truckee Canyon. I'd love to see light rail coming in from all the valleys, North Valleys and Spanish Springs and Bird Eye. I'd love to see that. We just don't have the funding for any of that stuff. It's not a lack of vision. It's a lack of funding.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I don't think that there's anybody on this commission that feels any differently. The difficulty that we have is that we have needs now. We have needs that should have been addressed 10 years ago, and so it's difficult to prioritize a project based on future needs when we're having to prioritize projects we should have taken care of 10 years ago. And you guys are all very aware of that.
Thanks, Cole. No, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Dare.
I have just two quick questions. One, the follow-up to Pyramid. Is that decision made? Are you just telling us what you're doing, or are you asking our opinion? And I say that nicely.
I'll have to get back to you on that. As I mentioned, it was a study that was done, and you guys have brought up a number of points, and it's a difficult thing to I guess express, because it's not a numbers thing. It's not engineering geometry thing. We're actually talking about driver behavior and how the driver reacts to these advanced warning signals. And the difficulty there is that, as you guys have all pointed out, that you also end up with a driver that becomes desensitized to those signs also. So it's just we're trying to make and take a statewide approach to how we're approaching these, and treat each intersection the same way based on the need. One of the things that was brought up in the slide that may not have been immediately intuitive was that we try to put these the active signals on the first signal coming into the valley. So as people are screaming into Pyramid Highway from the north, we want to have that signal up there to actually get their attention, to get them slowed down. Not having the signals there in some ways might actually be better, because then it actually causes the driver to brake and to react based on their vehicle and what they're capable of reacting to. So if you have somebody with a heavily laden semi, they're going to approach that signal at slower speeds, because they're unsure at that point in time if that yellow light's going to come up and turn to red, and they're going to have enough time to stop. So, our facilities are designed for, the 95% or better of the traffic, but you still have vehicles out there that are exceptions to that. A fire truck driving higher than the speed limits, that would be an exception to how we would design our facility. So a lot of times it really is incumbent upon the driver to drive in a safe manner for the vehicle that they're currently operating.
I appreciate that perspective. I think part of the problem, though, is we've created a behavior by what we have in place, and you're removing it. I think you're going to create a problem beyond it'll take the learning curve. What are we going to do in that? And potentially, you might be right. I mean, I guess there's psychology and things involved of behavior. But again, I would ask that you pause on those and you talk to us a little bit more. For me, for Sparks, I can tell you, I'm not interested in what I heard, but I don't understand the whole thing. So please.
Yep. And I'd be happy to set something up to reach out to you and sit down. Yep.
Talk. The second thing I appreciate also that we all, I mean, there's not enough finances to go around. I understand that. And everyone has needs. You go across the whole state and you guys get to look at all of them. Is there any cost comparative of what you spend down in Vegas rural to here? So when we're looking at it, I'd like to see that too, because I've been to Vegas. Let me finish. I've been to Vegas and I know what's happening down there. I'm in Vegas often actually. And to me right now, it definitely seems that there's a priority of that. Now they're larger, they're growing, they have things, but we're large, we're growing, and we have things. And so I'd like to see where that sits and how we're looking at that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we do have that data and I'd be happy to provide it to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Cole.
Thank you, Commissioner Dare. And I too, I'm glad there's going to be some more discussions about the advanced warning signals. I know something, and these are different scenarios, and I know you have to, while you try to come up with standards that can be applicable across the state, you almost have to look at each thing on an individualized basis, because you are correct that situations and behaviors might be different in different areas. And I'll give you an example where we on Center Street in downtown Reno, now granted, this is not a fast moving multi-lane freeway. We had for years a constant flashing yellow signal right at, I think it was Center and Mill, right there at the Renaissance, going over to the post office building. And what we found, and it was meant to drive up awareness for the crosswalk there. What we found though was because it was constantly flashing and it was there for such a long period of time, after a while, nobody paid attention to it anymore. And it actually became a safety issue by its constant flashing. So we had a decision point to make, was either remove it in its entirety or have it be a signal based upon someone pressing a button that activates it. So we ended up removing it because it came down to behaviors and what I refer to as the white noise, where signage and constant becomes white noise and driver behavior starts to ignore it. It's nothing different than a radar sign that works when you first put it in. And then after a while, guess what? People know that it's, you know, there's not a lot behind it other than telling you you're going over the speed limit. I mean, unless it's tied to an automatic ticket, it doesn't really hold a lot of penalty, I guess. So anyway, I appreciate you looking at those with the folks in Sparks. That's a really important issue. And I will say to Commissioner Dare's comments about the funding issue, and you can imagine where we get a little nervous when construction things get pushed out. And I know people get construction fatigue and they're like, my goodness, it's construction purgatory that we're never going to get out of. But there's also the concern, you know, when like the Spaghetti Bowl project isn't done as a singular project and it's phased, you start to worry that do future phases become, well, we just don't have the funding and therefore they don't occur. And I think that's what we're a little nervous about, is when things are phased, which the Spaghetti Bowl project is, and funding is contingent, the phases of that project is contingent on funding availability. And then things start getting pushed out a little bit, you start to worry that we're not going to get the total fix that the community deserves and that we all need. So just context. I mean, not saying that that's what's going to happen. It's just a matter of the North feeling a bit left behind in some of the major infrastructure projects that we often see going to the South. And this is one that we've all united behind and we want to see it completed sooner rather than later. So that's my soapbox and I'm off of it now. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments on the NDOT update?
One more comment, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you. And Mr. Mortensen, this is just, and I know you guys feel exactly the same way. One, I appreciate the collaborative relationship with NDOT through RTC. and I also know you guys understand completely that it's not good to be reactive in any situation. When you have to be reactive, you're always behind the ball. And so I just appreciate the conversations, and I'd like to be involved in the conversations with Mr. Dare so that we can be proactive and look at these things and try to figure it out well ahead of someone, either getting into an accident or worse, where we say, look, we've really got a problem here. I don't want those to be the indicators. I don't want that to drive our planning process.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. And I just wanted to kind of clarify, this is a little bit from, I know I brought it up previously here, and we brought it up at the CHAB meeting, and it does have impacts from an RTC perspective as it relates to the houseless population in our 4th Street station. And as we're entering winter and our ability to house individuals to make it through the winter. I think I heard from you, Cole, that even on an interim basis that the DMV building is not going to be an option for us, for the homeless for the winter.
Unfortunately, that is correct.
Okay, because I had not heard that definitively, so I'm hearing that from you. So I would just plead to my county colleagues that we aggressively pursue other avenues. Sorry, I'm mixing meetings, but it's critically important. Winter is upon us, so.
Well, and we really are working with the FHWA. A lot of times we have policies and procedures, actually not a lot of times, all the time. They require us to have policies in place on how we acquire right-of-way, how we dispose of right-of-way, surplus right-of-way. And this is one of those cases where we're kind of asking them to allow us to color outside of the lines so that we can expedite that surplus of the governor's bowl. So we're doing what we can to try to get there.
No, and I understand that, and I thank you very much for that. I think but we're all realizing that even under the best case scenario, we're not going to have a structure at the governor's bowl in time for winter. And that's what we're very, very fearful of, is what our homeless population is going to experience if we don't secure additional sheltering and quickly. So I appreciate your work on the Governor's Bowl. I value it very much. You've done tremendous work on that, and thank you. Okay, do we have any?
I want to echo that. I want to thank Cole publicly for all the hard work that he's done on that. He really has helped to move that needle, and so thank you so much, Cole.
Well, thank you. And it's not just me. I've got a team of people that are working diligently. I mean, part of the delay is that they had to do the engineering necessary to ensure that they had the appropriate footprint so that it's not an oops situation in the future where we run into a rub with the future project. And they really expedited that. Our right-of-way staff is expediting it, and the FHWA is right there with us. So I'd like to thank all them as well. And
Yes, thank you, FHWA.
And Cole, it's not to take away from the hard work that the staff did, but it wouldn't have happened without your leadership. And so that's what we're very appreciative of.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. I think we're on item 5, legal matters.
Madam Vice Chair, there are no legal matters to report today.
Okay, well, that was quick. We'd like to hear that. All right, we're moving on to item 6, closing public input.
There's none.
Thank you very much. Item 7, member items. I think we have a few that may have rolled from the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if we need to recap those or if Commissioner Delgado?
Nope.
Commissioner Hartung? No. Commissioner Dare?
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, I don't think I have any items. With that, Director Thomas, do we have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right.
We noted everything you said.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 8, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.